Adena, thank you so much for welcoming WayUp into this incredible studio. I'm amazed. This is awesome. Your office is amazing. So,
thank you.
For those who don't know, you're the CEO of NASDAQ, which is an incredible job. But for many people who might not know, you also started your career at NASDAQ as an intern, right?
I did, yes. I did start as an intern.
Incredible. So I have a lot of questions for you all about that. But let's start back to your college MBA days. Tell me, what was it that made you even want to apply to work at NASDAQ in the first place?
Yeah, so the things that made me think about applying to NASDAQ at that time were the fact that when I was in business school, I had two interests. One was in finance, and the other was in product management. And it's kind of an interesting combination to do product management in the financial services industry. And what was really interesting is that then I found out about NASDAQ, and NASDAQ was at that time a pretty young stock exchange, but an electronic exchange. And what I heard about the company was it really is, in a way, a technology product company within the financial space. So I decided to apply to NASDAQ to see whether I could get into the product management roles here at NASDAQ, even though, in the financial space. So it was kind of an interesting combination that I was able to find.
Amazing. And you were coming out of your MBA at the time?
I was, yes.
Okay, cool. So you're applying for this NASDAQ internship. You find out you get it. Tell me a little bit about what it was like interning at NASDAQ.
Sure. Well, interning at NASDAQ at that time actually was pretty unstructured. So we were still a pretty young company. We were a subsidiary of a larger organization called the National Association of Securities Dealers, which is a little known fact. And we were based in Washington, D.C., which is also a little known fact. And so we were a for-profit organization within a membership not-for-profit organization. And at that time, I think that the company had had a huge amount of success launching and then growing this new exchange based on electronic trading. And they'd started to get to the point where they had a lot of success with companies that had not qualified for New York when they came to NASDAQ, but then had become really big companies. Apple, Microsoft, Applied Materials, Intel, those were all companies listed on NASDAQ that had decided at that point, let's stay on NASDAQ. And so we had really started to develop out all of the different ways for us to trade those products, to trade other instruments beyond just stocks. And we were really trying to find our way as a for-profit organization. So I came in as the only intern in the group. I was in the trading group. They did have interns in the listing side, but none in the trading side. And so it was really kind of fun to be the only intern in the group.
Do you remember some of the things that when you were an intern that really stuck out to you as memorable, as fun, as even just defining of your career?
Well, the most memorable part of the internship really was the fact that I had to find my own way. So they said, okay, you're going to come in and you're going to write business plans for this trading product called ACES and another product called Portal. And I thought, and then they said, oh, of course, you have an MBA, so you know how to write a business plan. And I was like, oh, yeah, of course. Well, I had no idea how to write a business plan. So, and back then, the internet really hadn't kind of blossomed yet. So it was really a matter of going and doing my own research and saying, okay, what is it that really defines a business plan? What are the components of it? And then to find my way through the organization, find experts on these products, really help me understand the legal side of it, the technology side of it, the business side of it. And it was a lot of fun because I really was kind of finding my own way through the organization. And that is actually what defined my career. At the end of the day, I think that one of the great things about NASDAQ is you can find your way into the organization in one group and then move into other parts of the company. And that really was, but you have to have your own sense of self-reliance, self-starting, and that certainly was a good way for me to learn that early on.
Amazing. So I'm talking to someone who started out as an intern, became a CEO. I think a lot of interns dream of working full-time at the companies they interned and even maybe rising the ranks. Are you the only person who ever interned at NASDAQ and continued to stay there and grow in their careers, or are there many of you?
There are actually many of us now. So after I had my internship and as the company continued to mature, we started to have a more regular internship program. And so we now have a lot of our employees who used to be interns one of them is running sales within our data group.
Oh my gosh.
One of them is in the product management team in our data group. We also have people in our HR organization, our marketing organization, our finance and legal organization, all of whom started off as interns. So it really is actually a great way to get started here at NASDAQ.
Incredible. Okay, so thinking back to your younger self, you're in MBA, in college, you're applying for internships, you're probably freaking out about what the heck you're going to do with your life. What advice do you have for your younger self if you could write a message in a bottle, send it back in time?
Yeah. Well, the first thing to remember is that a career is 40 years long. So it is really important to recognize that you're not starting a sprint, you're starting a marathon. And you want to really think through, it doesn't mean your first job does not need to be the perfect job. But with each of the jobs that you have, you want to learn something about it. You want to decide what you like and what you don't like. It's actually, frankly, huge amount of value in learning what you like, but also learning what you don't like to do. And allow yourself to kind of take those early years, whether it's through the internship programs you do in college, or whether it's through the first couple of jobs you have, to really try to hone in on what makes you excited to come to work every day.
Yeah.
And how do you use your intellect, how do you use your curiosity to really drive you and motivate you? And if you kind of take those early years to do that, that will honestly set you on the better path for your longer career.
Awesome. So let's talk imposter syndrome. I think a lot of young adults, young professionals might have this kind of notion of imposter syndrome when they start a career, when they're even applying for an internship. There's 1,000,001 statistics about how women tend to hold back from applying for a job if they don't have every qualification. Any advice for young professionals who might have that imposter syndrome? Do you have imposter syndrome?
Well, when I was really early in my career, I was offered a couple of promotions along the way. And there were definitely times when I said, wow, I'm kind of surprised they think that I'm the right person. But I said, absolutely, I love that job. That sounds awesome. And then you sit there and say, okay, I'm going to figure this out. And you definitely realize that everyone else around you is having the same sentiment, right? Anyone else who's kind of entering into a new job and taking on new responsibility realizes that they have a lot to learn. Yeah. And the big thing is that you have to get over that fear, because I say that stretching yourself is almost like building new muscles. And that kind of muscle memory has to develop over time. So keep putting yourself into uncomfortable situations, and you'll develop that muscle where it goes from having fear to having excitement. And so by the time that I was in the middle of my career and moving up until certainly the last couple of chances I've had, I really didn't have any fear at all. It really was, I think I am ready for this. I know that I can take on the additional responsibility. I know that I can do this job well. But it all came from those early years where you had to force yourself into situations that made you uncomfortable.
Amazing. So I would assume when you felt uncomfortable, there were role models or mentors in your life. I know that your parents played a big role in helping you think through pros and cons of your career. Tell me a little bit about some of the role models in your life.
Yeah, so my biggest role model, are my parents actually. So I would say both of them together. One of them, because my father worked in the financial services industry his whole career and worked extremely hard throughout his career, but it obviously rewarded him as he went through. So he ended his career in the last 10 years as the Chief Investment Officer of T. Rowe Price. And he really had done a huge amount to impact the success of that company.
You have a power family. I hope you know that.
So that was really, to me, to watch his work ethic, to watch him really form the basis of that company and kind of the success it has today, I think was hugely inspiring to me. Then my mom had been a stay-at-home mom. She was a stay-at-home mom until I was 9, and then she went back to law school. And when I was 11, she became a lawyer. And over the next few years, she became actually the first woman partner in her law firm. But the fact that she was able to find that balance, she was always, I wouldn't say she was always home for dinner, because my dad actually had to start coming home and making dinner occasionally, but she was always there when I needed her, regardless of anything that was going on around her. And at the same time, she was hugely successful in her own profession. And so to me, those were really, really great role models. And I know not everyone has the benefit of role models who can kind of shape their career, but you do want to make sure that even if you don't have them inside your own family, that you look for them within your professional life, you look for them in your personal life, and try to make sure that you have a chance to interact with them and have them help you along the way.
Awesome. My final 2 questions for people watching who might be considering applying for an internship or a full-time role at NASDAQ. Tell me a little bit about the culture here.
The culture at NASDAQ is kind of an interesting combination. So we call it collaborative command. So for a long time, I think the company, as it was growing really fast and as we were dealing with a lot of acquisitions, we had really a command and control culture, which means a lot of decision making funneled up to the top of the organization. And given how quickly we had to make decisions and how fast the environment was moving, I think that it was actually an important stage in our evolution. But today, I think that we are a very innovative company. We're a tech company. We have a lot of organic opportunities for us to move forward, and it's still a very dynamic environment, but we're very scaled. So now it's a matter of making sure we get all the best ideas in the room. We really think them through together, and then we make a very definitive decision. And once that decision is made, we march forward together. So that to me is that combination of collaboration, but then also having the command and the decision-making authority to kind of move fast. And that's the kind of culture we try to instill here.
Awesome. All right, my last question for you. Someone is watching this, they decide, all right, I want to be the future CEO of NASDAQ. I'm going to start as an intern. They apply. Maybe it's their first job out of college. What interview advice do you have for someone who maybe finds out that they have an interview at NASDAQ and has no idea where to start preparing?
Yeah, well, the first thing is you do want to do the research. There's so much available online, and I know that our website gives a lot of information. There's obviously a lot of news and other sources of information about NASDAQ. Make sure not only that you understand NASDAQ, but that you understand who's in the senior management ranks. So who and what job are you actually interviewing for? Because we do have a pretty broad spectrum of opportunities here. So make sure you understand the job, understand ultimately how it reports up into the organization, and understand the company so that you can have an intelligent conversation with the interviewer. I mean, that's just kind of job number one. I think the other thing that we look for in all of our candidates is intellectual curiosity. Understanding or wanting to understand more about the world around them, wanting to understand more about the capital markets and how they shape the economy. Understanding that we actually are not just the capital market for the US, but we are also the capital markets in the Nordics, and we provide the technology that powers over 100 other markets around the world. Wow. So it's a really interesting, that intellectual curiosity is also going to play very well in the interview.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much again for having this conversation. It's incredible, and I think anyone who could work here would be very lucky. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.